You're tuned into Soul Fusion Cafe, your place for radiant wellness and soul-forward living. Join your host, Jess Juntunen, quantum healer, intuitive, and midwife to the awakening spirit, as we dive into quantum tools, wisdom teachings, and integrated healing pathways for transformation. You can live a life of freedom to be without limitation. Cozy up, grab your tea, and enjoy this hour of expansion, wisdom, and love. Hello, and welcome to Soul Fusion Cafe. I am your host, Jess Juntunen, evasive medical, intuitive, self-ascension, intuitive counselor, and midwife to the awakening spirit. And today I'm really excited to be with you again. And this episode, I think, is just really special to me on a personal note, but I hope that it feeds your soul too. Today, we are talking about awakening the goddess within, awakening the divine feminine, and what that really means, how we can do that in our regular, everyday life, and how to ignite some of the connection and magic that's within us all for the divine feminine through the goddess and other ways of connecting. This is really irrespective of what gender you are, we all connect to the goddess. And this has just really been an awakening for me in so many ways to come more deeply into this work and share it with others. So today, like I said, is a special day for me because it just feels like something that's so close to me and that I'm so excited about. So, awakening the divine feminine and awakening the goddess within. So, whether you are new to this journey or have been exploring this kind of work, welcome. I think there will be something for everybody this hour. So, on this beautiful planet of form, the Earth experience, we have so many aspects of ourselves to tune into and to gain wisdom from. And as I've been on this journey of self-ascension for many, many years, self-ascension simply is a pathway. It's non-dogmatic, and it's a way of unlocking your truest inner self and coming home to the self that you really are. And it really is an amazing path to follow. And we're always connecting to our heart. The heart is the gateway and the root center of our ascended beingness. That part of us that really is always guiding us. And the work really is about getting rid of the content of the ego and the old patterns, but not to get rid of the ego completely. That is important to us, but to get rid of the patterns and content that it's held on to as truth and belief systems that are limiting, and restructuring and rescripting them to support our ascended being. That's part of the work of self-ascension. And really it becomes very, very easy and not work at all when we can tap into our ascended presence. It becomes very rapid how we can do this. And the goddess work always has spoken to me because I think I have felt her since I was a little girl. But of course, in our society, not everyone, many of us are not blessed to learn about the goddess at the knees of our ancestors. She reveals herself to us in different ways. And I know I was always feeling her, but yeah, it really delighted me to come more consciously to her path over the past years. And it feels like that's really coming to a new level of fruition for me. I have been attuned as a cosmic priestess. I know I'm a priestess of the cosmos and bridging the earth and the cosmos and carrying that connection. But I've been kind of going deeply into some wisdom paths of the priestess here on earth that, of course, the cosmic is involved, but it's a little more traditional pathways of claiming our inner feminine. And so I have so many perspectives and thoughts that I really hope can serve you today in tapping into your own inner goddess and awaken some of those seeds within that are ready to birth forth, because we are both human and cosmic in nature. We are multidimensional and we are human, right? We have these different elements of ourselves. So it's important to embrace all aspects of ourselves and to integrate them so that they all are serving our authenticity, so that they're all serving the truth of who we are. And there's as many paths as there are people, whatever way or mix or method is yours, is unique to you. So allow yourself to play and explore. And this path of the awakening feminine, it's so alive on our planet right now. It's a time for us to really come back to the divine feminine. For tens of thousands of years, for all of human history until quite recently, the feminine and the goddess ruled. They were understood as the energy of creation, as the energy of awakening, as the energy that all life comes from. So there was a deep reverence for the feminine and thus for women in culture and society. And women and men, it was pretty egalitarian. It wasn't like a power or a hierarchy. And people were very much in groups and communities and supporting each other. And the earliest art and representations that we have are generally of the feminine form and the goddess. And, you know, she's always very voluptuous. And there's Salisbury Hill, and that was this huge, and it's still there, this huge mound that took generations to build, and archaeologists and people all wanted to see what was inside. There isn't anything inside. It's the earth. It's not some grand tomb of a man. It's the earth and the earth mother. It's really profound because we really had some changes in our thinking along the journey, and we moved away from the divine feminine and the mother. And it was honestly a very tragic time in our history. There was this entire genocide, really, of women. Women were just, you know, the witch trials. Think about that. At least in our like Western European traditions. Think about the witch hunts and how many women died and how that changed things for so long, and how that wasn't really that long ago. 3 centuries, 4 or 5 centuries. And it's really not very far in our human history. Not very many generations back, you know. So that kind of energy is still here with us. And it was definitely here before that happened. But it was part of this huge shift of fear of the feminine and the power of the feminine. It was a way to try to squash that power. So what has happened is that so many women are afraid of using their voice, afraid to be the truth of who they are, afraid to be in their power. And This wasn't the reason things happened. It was really a symptom of what was happening. And we had this huge imbalance happen between the masculine and the feminine. And it took time to build, and it's taking time to unwind. But we are in a moment, and it's been happening, where the feminine is rising again on the planet. And again, this is about balance. This is about claiming our empowerment. This is about touching into our intuition and trusting that aspect of ourselves. Along with all those changes came the advances in science and the way we think about science, even, because science has been around for a long time, but the way we define what is science and how it's done has shifted. In the ancient traditions of the yogis, it was the science of yoga. It was the exploration of our inner universe, and all of these beautiful wisdoms and teachings and understandings were birthed from that science of connecting to the inner self. So, but now, science just became to this point where it's got to be black or white. People accept things as fact if it's based in science. However, that's not always the case, because science, I'm a rhetorician and I could really geek out about it, but science is an argument, and it's what questions are being asked, who is asking those questions, and what are they looking for. So yes, we can determine so much from the scientific method, but it really depends on what that person or group of people are asking, how they're asking it, and what their beliefs are going into it. So it's perfectly beautiful, but it does limit us when we think, oh, there's this logical left brain science part of the world, and that's where all the truth comes from, right? And people will say, well, I can't believe in the mind body spirit connection because show me the science, or I can't believe in quantum healing, show me the science. And quantum healing, to me, this came up recently where it really bothered me, but I got very negative feedback about quantum healing because it's become now a pseudoscience and all these claims of it's not really a science. Whether or not you think it's science based on our current understandings of what science is does not really negate the fact that there are results and you can measure the results. And quantum healing, to me, just really is a umbrella term for all these other works we do. It's for the spiritual counseling and coaching, Reiki, even work that we do in a traditional hospital setting could have quantum healing results, because it's all about belief. It's all about going into the field, whether it's the morphic field, the quantum field, whatever you want to call it. It's all about transcending this experience that is very solid and earthbound into our multidimensional self. And it's really hard to explain with words of the brain how we do that and what happens there. It's something that you have to feel to know, and that you have to trust, and you have to go on a deeper inner wisdom. And the brain and the mind are beautiful, but they are tools. But what happened, really, to circle all the way back around, is we started to worship the mind. The ego came along with that, and it got distorted, and it became what is real. And anything that had a sense of, unexplained phenomenon became superstition and not valid, a way to describe, other people and cultures as demonic or ungodly, and all of these things started happening. And here we are at this moment where we have grown so out of touch with our deeper wisdom and intuition, and been taught to not even trust it, and that it's dangerous. You have generations and generations of this being played out violently often, that is what happens. We take on the beliefs of our ancestors and imagine what our ancestors went through. But at the same time, we have this deep inner wisdom and beliefs that have been encoded with us since the most ancient grandmothers who wished for our healing and our love and our upliftment to come about full circle into our lives. We have the seeds for healing within us. We have everything we need inside of us. And the divine feminine and the goddess, they teach us to access that part of our wisdom. And it's who we are. We are this blend of a human. We are like part of the earth. We're part of the animals, the plants, the elements. All of that exists within our body, which is a microcosm of the macrocosm. And the universe exists within us then too. So really, self-ascension, lifting in the heart and going up, requires us to balance and integrate all aspects of ourself. The mind is important. Scientific thought is important. All of that's important. I'm not saying it is not. It's because it's out of balance, though, that we aren't seeing a bigger picture and we're not being open to other possibility and potentiality sometimes. So the balance really comes, and that's what lifts us. We really need to balance our masculine and feminine sides. And the masculine really is like the taking action, the passionate, compassionate, father, loving, male energy, strength and compassion, and that ability to take action on the ideas and things being generated within us. And the divine feminine is that aspect of our intuition, our inner knowing, the ability to tap in and go beyond what's in front of the eye and feel and create, to nourish and nurture. Think that's why the earth is so associated as the divine mother, because she nurtures all, just as the woman representation of the divine feminine nurtures a baby and family and friends through her nourishment and nurturing. Yet, even whether or not whatever gender we are, it does not matter if you're male, female, non-gender, non-binary, whatever the case, everyone has the divine feminine and divine masculine elements within them, and bringing them into balance can really increase our satisfaction with life, our health, our vitality, our sense of purpose, and help us lift into self-ascension. The divine feminine is often represented by a triangle or pyramid that is pointed downwards. So it is like the womb. It represents the womb, and it is also pointed down because it's, sending and receiving energy with the earth. And then the divine masculine is an upward pointed pyramid pointing into the cosmos, opening up our wisdom to the divine heavens. But together they create the Merkaba. The Merkaba is two pyramids or triangles, but it's really represented 2D. If you imagine it 3D, they're like two interlocking pyramids that you can spin and see. It's a creation of a sacred geometry, which is said to be like the chariot. It's a portal. It's a way to lift into our multidimensional expression. And it's hard to get there if we don't balance these energies. And the balance between the two really depends on our ability to be open and trust and follow our own inner guidance. And that means, what teachers are pulling you, what pathways are pulling you, what medicines pull you, what makes you curious, where is your greatest fun and joy, what brings you peace and love, and really bringing the focus onto the divine and the way that the divine manifests for you. Keep your eyes on the divine at all times. So I think we're really at a point where we're saying, ceremony is important. Having a spirituality is important, and it doesn't need to be contained within any dogmatic framework or anything, which the path of the goddess can really offer a lot of that. There's no dogma associated. You can go through a more formal training and be certified, or I don't know, initiated, sorry, certified's not the word, be initiated into a pathway. But, unless somebody is running a school and they are being dogmatic and bringing that into the world, just trust your inner wisdom about all pathways. For the most part, this has really always been about, it's not dogmatic. It's not about a hierarchy. It's not about power. It's about empowerment. It's about empowering the healer within us. It's about empowering the awakened sense of passion and ecstasy and flow and creation and prosperity and abundance. It is a way to open up and allow the deep wisdoms that have been seeded within us to sprout, grow, birth, and bloom. So, yeah, how is all of that really sitting with you, and how are you feeling as you tap into that? Whether or not you feel like you're going to follow any particular pathway, I invite you to just be curious. I'm not really advocating that you have to become a follower of the goddess unless you want to, but I am sharing that it is a way to awaken our divine feminine. And the divine feminine is what it is calling to each of us right now. This energy has been rising for the past several years, and we are seeing a crescendo in that, and it can sound like, well, how could that be happening? I mean, in the United States, look, women's reproductive rights are being threatened and challenged. Things that we thought we had moved past, we are now revisiting. And there's been a lot of misogyny and hate towards women. And that is a sign, a symptom that this awakening is happening, because as these energies awaken, it is challenging the paradigm that has been in control for quite some time, thousands of years, but again, in the grand scale of all human history, not really long, but it's been here for a long time, and it's been in our collective memory and consciousness for a very long time. And what happens when the status quo gets challenged? Okay, it is part of the ego. Again, the ego is here to serve us. It is not here to run the show, but it has been given that. We are in a world where the ego has been ruling supreme for some time, and the ego is like a child. So, you can really see how things have spiraled out of control, and there's all this power and fear and anger and hate. Those are all things that the ego runs so strongly, and it's really designed in order to try to preserve itself, to keep itself safe, to keep us safe, but it has gotten grossly disproportionate. It's never been meant to be what runs everything. It's meant to be a tool to help inform us. And we do need to just love it, because it's been trying to keep us safe all along. But it's feeling threatened, especially by those that have been holding power, those who have had power over others, those that have had a benefit by the current paradigm. And that current paradigm is saying, I'm scared. No, anything that's coming up that threatens my beliefs and my position where I am, I'm going to fight tooth and nail. So that energy is fighting tooth and nail. So that's why it can seem like, wow, everything is going crazy. It's like a healing crisis. And naturopathy, we call a healing crisis that time when you're like, say you are engaging on a detox or a fast in your body, and well, you start feeling really crappy for a few days. And somebody that's never done that before might say, why would I even do this to myself? I feel terrible. Or it can happen when we're going through some major life event or going to counseling or something, and we start bringing things up that were trapped under the surface. Well, when we do any of these things, it's like, yeah, we start to feel the relief of the healing, but then there is a lot of content or toxins that are stored even in our tissues, and in our subconscious, other places, and it comes out and forward while it's being purged. And sometimes there's a lot of discomfort, and that's called the healing crisis. And at that moment, sometimes people go back to the old patterns because the healing crisis scares them, and doesn't feel good. So they think that something's wrong and they won't keep going. Well, that's kind of what's happening on a expanded global level right now, is a healing crisis. People on the world stage, groups of people and energies are saying, no, I'm scared, right? The ego is super scared of this change and this shift in energy of the rising feminine and all the ascended energies that are affecting our planet of form right now. And the response is to hold on tighter. It's like, think about children, because what's happening is we're ascending from being children to really being responsible for ourselves and our planet and others. But children, right? Like the ego is very much like a childlike perspective, very me-centered, or it's spiritualized ego, and it's gathered together in groups. And that is really what we're seeing big time on our planet, is that egos aligning with other egos under a particular cause. This can be political, it can be religious, it can be environmental activism, it can be things that are, seem good or seem bad. Everything really is neutral in the entire big picture, but on this planet we have good, bad, that we've defined things and created this whole world of polarities. However, the rising energy, makes people band together. It makes these clusters of egos band together and say, our group's right, everyone else is wrong, and there's tension and divides and lines being drawn in the sand, and so much happens in this energy, and it can be dangerous, and we've seen that. However, we are evolving to an ascension awareness where more and more are awakening. There must be more than this. There must be more than this 9-to-5 style life and scarcity and just trying to get by, and, people with tons and tons of abundant resources that don't feel connected at all, and some that are, but there are, the abundant resources of money does not fulfill us spiritually, and we're seeing that happening a lot too, right? So, but there's a lot of scarcity, like I don't have the resources I need just to survive, let alone the spiritual resources to understand that I'm bigger than that and can move through that. And so there's a status quo that wants to keep everything the way it is because there's a power dynamic happening, and they say, nope, I'm scared of anything threatening my power, so all the stops are getting thrown out to stop this rising energy on the planet, the expansion and the healing and the divine feminine energy that's coming back. There really is an effort, whether or not it's consciously understood or not, by many to drag this process to a halt and say, no, no, no. However, it's happening, and what we can all do individually, if you're listening and you're like, what do I do? Is to really do our inner work, to really go within, to really heal our own wounds, our own shadow material, and amplify the love and the peace within us, because we're co-creators, and what we create within us, when we light up our heart and awaken, we are modeling and holding the door open for 100,000 others to do the same. Archangel Zadkiel, he says that. And it's true. When one of us lights our heart, and when we stand in our truth of our being, others automatically are inspired to do the same. And that is happening. Look for the good. Look for where that's happening. What we focus on expands. Expand on focusing your energy into creating the peace, love, and light, and healing up the wounds and issues. And sometimes, you are healing on behalf of many, not just yourself, but your ancestry, many on the planet itself. So be easy on yourself. You're dealing with a lot of content, and not to mention past lives, right? There's a lot going on in this. So just really have mercy and be gentle on yourself. Taking a breath there. Ooh, I'm feeling that. Hand to heart, taking a beautiful heart-centered breath. So let's dive into this energy of the divine feminine awakening within. Do that. Feel into your heart. What is your heart whispering to you? Allowing yourself to just soften, become gentle, connect to the inner knowing and wisdom within. And now the goddess is such a beautiful way to go within. You could pick one goddess that you're curious about and work with her for a day or a week. You could pick a goddess and work with her for an entire year. And there are so many faces of the goddess. She represents archetypes of our own personalities, our own spiritual nature. And it's like each goddess is a blueprint of how to unlock our own empowered divine feminine presence, and how to connect with others, nature, our planet, and how to find our place in our cosmic heritage. So it really doesn't matter which one you start with or where you're called. It's to just simply feel the call and notice which goddess might be piquing your interest or calling to you, or get a deck of cards and just select one and feel into her. Just start to read, because many, many, many women and men are beginning to come back to this energy that she represents. She was squashed out of so many places on our planet, and she was replaced with images of gods. The masculine or the feminine was subdued and quieted. And when we look at our whole history, it's always very fascinating to see, in the Western European culture, right? Many, many goddesses became absorbed and became saints, and Mary was really the goddess of all, and was even seen that way for a long time, because all of these divine feminine archetypes that the church absorbed were ones that were revered and honored by the people in all of the rural areas of Europe for a very long time. And it was really part of custom. It wasn't even just it wasn't a religion. It was just people flowed with the seasons. They had to plant the fields and harvest and had families and took care of each other. So there was a natural cycle of life, and honoring the feminine that all things were birthed from in the earth was just a natural part of experience. It wasn't like a structured, dogmatic religious experience. And this happened all over the world, though, right? Every culture and tradition had beautiful divine feminine energies. Whether we call them goddesses or not, divine sacred feminine energies, representations. And there's always a story of like the great mother that all was birthed from, right? And she goes by many, many, many names. So whoever you connect with or are drawn to is perfect, because all divine feminine archetypes, all goddesses contain the seeds of the divine feminine essence of creation, nurturing, nourishment, healing, all of these things that for so long in our history we just understood as essential, that at some point in a crescendo became evil and feared. And we're still coming out of that. It's truly amazing. And it's all the blink of an eye from the cosmic perspective. But when we journey to the center of ourselves, which is what going on this journey of the goddess really invites us into, it invites us to love and honor our emotions, and it so goes with self-ascension, the pathway to home that has been mapped out, this really non-dogmatic pathway that, you can use any type of spirituality you want within it. You can call the divine whatever name you want to call the divine, the goddess, God, the universe, divine love, the interconnection to the authentic self, however you want to look at that. Today we're just exploring a bit more about the divine feminine and goddess energies that are present for us to explore if we choose to. And what I love about the goddess is that she does connect us to our earthliness, because sometimes on the path of self-ascension, and I've done this too, we, whether or not you're saying it's self-ascension, whatever pathway you've been on spiritually, we often are reaching for the upper, right? We're looking up. We're looking up to the heavens. We're looking up to the sky. We're trying to lift above our humanness and connect to our divine. And sometimes we just even want to get away from our humanness, we say. I'm trying not to be in my emotions. I'm trying to be the witness and all that. And of course, by all means, I absolutely teach being the witness and find that to be the most powerful way to detach ourselves from our attachments, because we have all these attachments here that make it very hard for us to see the truth of things. And at the same time, though, the path of the goddess is a connection to that cosmic wisdom, but it allows us to really honor and feel our bodies as part of this earth and the interconnectedness that we all share as humanity and part of creation. And it's very important that we don't feel like our emotions are bad, right? For so long, because of how things have gone, having anger has been considered bad, and you have so many people squelching their anger, and anger is really being fearful and hurt. That's where anger is birthed from. So if we can't face our anger, if we can't embrace it and what it's showing us, we can't get to those fears and try to work with those fears. Instead, what we've done is just try to bottle it all up till it bursts out, and it's not acceptable to have those feelings. It's not seen as ladylike to have them. Of course, men can demonstrate them in the energy of protection, but or well, that's part of the energy it can carry, right? Defense, protection of the tribe or whatever, but it's been definitely grossly inflated. And women really weren't allowed to express those emotions for like a long time, and we're still struggling with that. Our anger is a push energy. It's an action energy. It can be a good energy to harness and channel and not see it as bad, to see it as an exploration and a way to release. And if we can work with it, we can do that without hurting other people, right? And we can really use it to inform us. Our emotions can teach us so much about what we are carrying within us and what we need to heal, and what we identify with is our humanness. We want to explore that, and exploring the path of the goddess, she teaches us that yes, we have ecstasy, and we have pain, and we have ferociousness, and we have anger, and we have all of these many varying emotions, and they are doorways and things to explore and to feel what's going on in our body, to really connect to our body. Where are we feeling this? How are we feeling this? How we express this in a safe and honored way. And so often on our spiritual pathway, we try to just disassociate from all of that, and it doesn't work, because we have to at some point resolve the inner conflict with our human nature and spiritual nature. We're both, so we can start to really have our emotions work for us and through us rather than controlling us when we get curious and start leaning into them and honoring them and respecting them. So that's one thing that I have found the path of the goddess to really be supportive. I also find it to really support our growing intuitive nature. It's part of our innate wisdom, and it lives within our very being. And the path of the goddess is a transcendent way to connect to that wisdom that is within each and every one of us. You are a wise, beautiful, awakened being of divine light and wisdom. And to doubt that is to kill your own self and your own soul. It kills the connection that you have with the divine. So it's such a pathway to remembering ourselves, and it connects us, to our ancestors in a really profound way. We remember and honor where we have come from and those that came before us, and we pass on knowledge through us that is learned through our ancestors. And to really honor and respect that connection is a very important part of us coming home to ourselves, because we're not just in a vacuum doing our work on ourselves. We are connected to a whole larger picture of beings that came before us and that will come after us, right? So really, again, taking a breath and connecting with everything being shared here today. And I'd like to share a little about one goddess that I am working with this year, and she's very new to me. Personally, I had not heard of her, and I'm wondering how not. I'm sure I have heard of her in other lifetimes, because she connects with me so deeply, and she came to me through a priestessship, awakening, the inner goddess kind of training, where she came to me. She chose me, I chose her, and I had not heard of her. Your enemy. She is a goddess from ancient Greece, but before it was even Greece. the peoples that were there on this, not exactly an island. There's a small connection to the rest of Greece, but it's very much surrounded by water all around and has mountains and lakes and just beauty. And she was birthed in this area, and she's a creation goddess. She came from chaos. So from chaos, your enemy was born into the world. She was the first being, and it's not really explained, at least not that we could find now, how she came to be, but she did. And she was alone and cold, and she began to dance to keep warm, and she was dancing ecstatically, passionately, swirling and whirling, and this created the water in the sky, and she was dancing across the water and created the horizon line. And sometimes that's like her name, it's the Wanderer, and it's that horizon line of the sea and the sky. And she danced and danced, and her dancing created the four directions, the four winds, and they played with her and chased her, and she turned and took the north wind and rolled it into like a snake, which was Ophion. And he was enamored by your enemy and was dancing with her and winding around her. And the two of them ended up getting into this ecstatic dance and mated. And from that, sometimes your enemy is described as turning into a white pigeon, and laying the cosmic egg, or the two of them merge and create the cosmic egg. But the cosmic egg, which is often a symbol in many cultures, the egg is, that energy of war creation is birthed from. So all creation is birthed from this egg. All the titans come from this egg. Later on, the Greeks adopt your enemy, and her story changes a few different times, and then she becomes a wife of Zeus, I believe, later on. But again, she predated the Greek culture that sprang up in the area later on. So your enemy and the egg of creation, where all of creation came from, all of the elements, the stars. Sometimes she's described as being the moon, but all of the cosmos come from the egg. All the elements on the earth and animals and plants come from here. And then I love this part because she's in up in her court later on, and Ophion's getting very puffed up, and he starts to take responsibility for all of creation, saying he alone creates all of this. He's bragging, and she gets upset, right? Of course, and she kicks him on the head with her heel and sends him to the underworld. And that's really great because it's one of those cases where you see later on how this becomes part of other storytellings with Adam and Eve, right? She kicks the serpent in the head with her heel, and that whole serpent mythology and how that comes through so many different traditions, and the serpent is a sacred symbol. But yeah, so I love that she kicks him out, kicks him in the head, knocks his teeth out, and says, "Get out of here." But yeah, her creation energy, right? She's this ecstatic, passionate force. She creates through her movement, through her embodiment of ecstasy with divine union. She's coming into communion. So we can understand a story of a goddess and go to the myths of the goddess. And these are really blueprints to understand an aspect of our own selves. We contain those aspects within us that we are seeing represented by a goddess we work with. And that goddess that we're working with is inviting parts of ourselves to meet her. So it really becomes this beautiful dance of exploration. So it's just really can be very fun to allow ourselves to go into that space. It unlocks our imagination. It unlocks things. These archetypes contain truths and seeds of our actual nature and show us how to awaken and connect with the divine and the cosmic nature of who we are, as well as embrace and love our humanity and what we get to create here on this planet. It's a beautiful planet to be born on. Look at everything that is around us here. This natural world is stunning, and we get to be in a human form so we can touch it. We can have feelings, we can have emotions, we can have experiences, we can have union, we can have relationship and sexual energy and all these energies that we can absolutely, and it's our birthright to enjoy them while we're here on this planet of form. Spirit gets to take form and be part of the creation of form. Wow, there's a lot of reasons why you took birth, and you might not know all of them because it can't be accessed through the mind. It has to be accessed through the soul and through feeling, and it's beyond description to really be able to go there. And it's such a gift, and that is why we came here. So the Divine Feminine teaches us and shows us how we can awaken ourselves to the divine that is within each and every one of us. And when we do that too, it's naturally an extension to see the connection between me and you and all the other beings on the planet. Anything that we do helps everyone else. And when we are connected to our divine wisdom, we then know how to nourish, how to serve. We know where our place is. Maybe it's being a music teacher. Maybe it's being a master gardener. Maybe it's being a spiritual leader or healer. But we are all healers and we are all leaders. But we each have our own gifts and way of serving. And to touch into our feminine nature can really unlock those keys of why am I here? How am I serving? Your presence matters. It's your sincerity, love, and presence that really guide you and show the way for so many others. So the Divine Feminine is a sacred homecoming to our nurturing, nourishing, creative, passionate, ecstatic dance of freedom. It's empowerment, not power over, empowerment of the divine within. And it is our time, and that time is rising on the planet. And more women are gathering in circles again and creating these energies. And men are coming and saying, oh my God, I want to touch into my divine feminine nature, and I want to create circles and spaces too. And those that don't feel like they identify with any gender are saying, I want to find those aspects of the divine feminine and masculine within me as well, because they transcend all genders. Genders are just a concept of this planet in a way that we take shape and are born, but they really have very little to do with our divine feminine, divine masculine nature within. We have all of those elements, and we really want to bring them into balance. Just like if we are completely in touch with our divine feminine, yet we don't put it into action or bring it into the world or birth that reality, then or if we shun the masculine that says take action, be seen and bring it to the world, and have the compassionate, loving energy of the protective father with the nurturing, loving, protective, courageous mother, all those energies within us. And there's no way I can even encapsulate all this conversation in a 1 hour show, and it is almost time for us to conclude today's episode. If you've been tuning in and you're wondering what you're listening to, this is Soul Fusion Cafe. I am on Oneness Talk Radio. That is a uplifting network of talk radio, music, all kinds of beautiful uplifting messages that we so need in this time, and beautiful perspectives. And I'm also on the Oneness Talk Radio YouTube channel, so you may be listening at either of those, or my archives at selfascensionstudios.com, where there's many other episodes that you can find to explore and listen to and see a little bit about my work, because I love to support others in one-on-one sessions and workshops as they discover their own inner self and truth and release limiting beliefs and patterns that could be keeping them back, and to really tap into their worthiness and their value and their vision for themselves and their future. I really love supporting women healing the physical issues to the mental, emotional issues that come with being a woman on this planet. And I just enjoy connecting with you and spinning out some of this work into the world. I'm happy to connect with you. Let me know. I do free discovery sessions, or just shoot me a line and hang out at Joy Love Jess on Instagram, or over at Facebook, Self Ascension Studios. Check out my website, selfascensionstudios.com. I'd love to hear from you if you have topic ideas, if you have questions you'd like answered on the next episode, or anything. Just let me know. I love to have a conversation with you. And for now, we are wrapping up, and I am so grateful for having shared this moment with you. I'm so grateful for this time that we have together every week and in all ways. I am sending you so many blessings and so much love. I hope that you have a radiant day and a beautiful week. Namaste and many blessings. You've been listening to Soul Fusion Cafe with Jess Juntunen. Connect with Jess and learn more at her inspiration hub, selfascensionstudios.com, and over on Instagram at JoyLoveJess and Soul Fusion Cafe Radio, or over at Facebook at Self Ascension Studios and Soul Fusion Cafe Radio. Thank you for listening. See you next week. Namaste and many blessings. I'm Jess Juntunen, and you're tuned into Oneness Talk Radio. One world, one voice. Expand your vision.